Imagine controlling 90% of an entire industry. Imagine having so much power that governments fear you, competitors flee from you, and your very name becomes synonymous with monopoly itself. This wasn't just imagination. This was the reality of Standard Oil Company, the most powerful business empire the world had ever seen. By 1904, one man's vision had grown into a corporate giant that refined 91% of America's oil and controlled 85% of final sales. But how did a simple partnership formed in 1863 become an empire so vast that it took the Supreme Court itself to break it apart? Today we're going behind the scenes of Standard Oil to uncover the strategic brilliance, controversial tactics, and lasting legacy of the company that literally fueled America's rise to industrial dominance. The story of Standard Oil isn't just about oil, it's about the birth of modern corporate America. It's about how one man, John D. Rockefeller, transformed a chaotic, wasteful industry into a precision machine that would define business strategy for generations to come. What you're about to discover will change how you think about business empires, monopolies, and the very foundations of American capitalism. We'll explore the ingenious methods Rockefeller used to eliminate competition, the secret deals that gave Standard Oil unprecedented advantages, and the ultimate confrontation with the U.S. government that would reshape antitrust law forever. From a small refinery in Cleveland to a global empire worth billions, this is the untold story of how Standard Oil was really built. The year was 1863, and America was in the midst of civil war. But in Cleveland, Ohio, the young entrepreneur named John D. Rockefeller saw opportunity where others saw chaos. The oil industry was barely 4 years old, born from Edwin Drake's first successful oil well in Pennsylvania in 1859. What most people don't realize is that Rockefeller didn't start in oil exploration. He chose refining. While others were gambling on finding oil in the ground, Rockefeller focused on the more predictable business of processing crude oil into kerosene, the fuel that lit America's homes. His initial partnership included his brother William, chemist Samuel Andrews, and silent partner Stephen V. Harkness. With just $1,000 in capital, they established what would become the foundation of the world's first oil empire. But here's what made Rockefeller different from his competitors: his obsession with efficiency and cost reduction. While other refineries dumped gasoline into rivers, remember, this was before automobiles made gasoline valuable, Rockefeller found ways to sell every byproduct. Nothing was wasted. By 1870, Rockefeller had incorporated the Standard Oil Company of Ohio with $1 million in capital. But the real genius wasn't in the company's formation. It was in Rockefeller's understanding of the oil industry's fundamental problem: chaos. The early oil industry was wildly unpredictable. Prices fluctuated dramatically, refineries undercut each other ruthlessly, and waste was endemic. Rockefeller saw this marketplace inefficiency as an opportunity. His solution was revolutionary: vertical integration combined with horizontal consolidation. Standard Oil didn't just refine oil, it controlled every aspect of the business, from production to retail sales. The company built its own barrels, owned its own pipelines, operated its own railroad cars, and even had its own retail network. This vertical integration gave Standard Oil massive cost advantages over competitors who had to rely on outside suppliers. But the real breakthrough came through Rockefeller's railroad strategy. Here's how it worked. Standard Oil promised railroad companies like the Lakeshore Railroad a guaranteed 60 carloads of oil daily. In return, they received a 71% discount from listed rates, paying just 42 cents per barrel instead of the standard rate of $1 per barrel. This wasn't just a discount, it was a competitive weapon. Smaller refineries couldn't match these transportation costs, making it almost impossible for them to compete on price. What happened next was perhaps the most systematic business consolidation in American history. Between 1872 and 1879, Rockefeller embarked on what he called "our plan," the methodical acquisition of competing refineries. The strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Standard Oil would approach struggling competitors with an offer: sell to us at a fair price or face inevitable bankruptcy as we undercut your prices with our superior cost structure. Within the first 3 months of 1872 alone, Rockefeller had acquired 22 of his 26 Cleveland competitors. Some were bought outright, others were simply driven out of business, and a few were absorbed through stock swaps. But Rockefeller's approach wasn't just about elimination, it was about optimization. After acquiring a refinery, Standard Oil would evaluate its efficiency. The most modern facilities were kept and expanded, while outdated operations were shut down. This wasn't destruction, it was industrial evolution. The numbers tell the story. Standard Oil's kerosene prices dropped from 58 cents per gallon in 1865 to just 26 cents in 1870. Consumers benefited from lower prices, even as Rockefeller's empire grew. By 1882, Standard Oil faced a new challenge: how to legally manage dozens of companies across multiple states. State laws prevented corporations from owning stock in companies based in other states, a major obstacle for a growing national enterprise. Rockefeller's solution was revolutionary: the Standard Oil Trust. On January 2, 1882, 41 investors signed the Standard Oil Trust Agreement, pooling their securities from 40 companies into a single holding agency managed by 9 trustees. This wasn't just a legal maneuver, it was the birth of the modern corporate structure. The trust allowed centralized management while maintaining the legal fiction of separate companies. It was so successful that other industries quickly adopted the trust model. The original trust was valued at $70 million, equivalent to over $2 billion today. But more importantly, it gave Standard Oil unprecedented coordination and efficiency across its entire network. With domestic dominance secured, Standard Oil turned its attention overseas. By the 1890s, American oil production exceeded domestic demand, creating an opportunity for international expansion. China became Standard Oil's largest Asian market. From the 1890s, the company began building a river distribution network. The large fleet of hundreds of vessels developed later, particularly in the 1920s and 1930s. In the Middle East, Standard Oil partnered with other companies to develop oil reserves, while in Europe, the company established a network of distribution centers and retail outlets. By 1904, Standard Oil was exporting 51% of its kerosene production worldwide, making it America's first truly global corporation. But Standard Oil's very success made it a target. By 1990, the company controlled 88% of refined oil flows in the United States, a level of market dominance that alarmed politicians and the public. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 was passed partly in response to Standard Oil's power. The law forbade every contract, scheme, deal, or conspiracy to restrain trade, though the phrase restraint of trade remains subjective. The real challenge came from investigative journalist Ida Tarbell, whose father's oil business had failed due to Standard Oil's competitive practices. Her 19-part series in McClure's magazine, later published as The History of the Standard Oil Company, exposed the company's methods to public scrutiny. Her work fueled growing attacks on Standard Oil and monopolies in general. Her detailed investigation revealed the secret railroad rebates, the systematic elimination of competitors, and the concentration of power in the hands of a few families. In 1906, the U.S. Department of Justice filed its antitrust lawsuit against Standard Oil. The District Court issued its ruling in 1909, and the Supreme Court delivered its final decision in 1911. The evidence was overwhelming. Government investigators found that, from Maine to California, the general arrangement of open rates on petroleum oil is such that the Standard gets an unreasonable advantage over its competitors. The lawsuit revealed that Standard Oil charged excessive prices where it faced no competition, but cut prices ruthlessly where competitors existed, often to levels that left little profit for anyone. On May 15, 1911, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict. Standard Oil was an unreasonable monopoly under the Sherman Antitrust Act and must be broken up into 34 independent companies.
The breakup of Standard Oil marked the end of an era, but not the end of its influence. The 34 baby standards included companies that would become ExxonMobil, Chevron, and other oil giants that still dominate the industry today. Ironically, the dissolution made John D. Rockefeller even wealthier, as the owner of a quarter of the shares in the resulting companies, and with those share values doubling after the breakup, he emerged as the richest man in the world. But Standard Oil's true legacy isn't just in oil. It's in the business strategies that became standard practice across American industry. Vertical integration, systematic consolidation, cost optimization, and global expansion all trace their roots back to Rockefeller's innovations. The company that began as a small Cleveland refinery had fundamentally transformed not just the oil industry, but the very nature of American capitalism itself. What do you think about Standard Oil's methods? Were they brilliant business strategies or unfair monopolistic practices? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this historical deep dive, don't miss our video about the hidden power of the Rothschild family, which you can see on the screen right now. Thank you for staying with us until the end. See you in the next video. Goodbye.